Taylor.
And I'm Amber.
And this is
Waking Up the Witch. We're your neighborhood witches. Each week, we talk about all things witchy and connect with other humans in a storytelling format about navigating life on this floating rock.
We're two curious ladies trying to understand the human experience. But while we do that, we think it's important to honor the people that lived here before us and honor the cultures and traditions that we're being inspired by.
This podcast is about waking up the witch, which means we are learning and growing every day. That being said, we are always open to feedback on how we can do better.
The views and opinions of our guests don't necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Waking Up the Witch. Now, let's go, ghouls. Hey, Amber.
Hi, Taylor.
What's poppin'?
Oh, just becoming a big ball of caterpillar goo during this fucked up eclipse.
Mm-hmm. You've really been going through it there, Sister Sue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not even all mine, and that's the kind of annoying part, is I'm just feeling a lot of all of the energy, and like I've neglected my self-care for too long, and so I'm just like,
yeah, you're doing all the things.
I'm fucking crazy right now.
I'm gonna be real. I was like waiting for a kind of crash and burn because it was like nonstop, and I know that you like really do require a restart and recharge, and so I mean I saw this coming from a fucking mile away. Also, I'm not like I haven't really seen this chaotic version.
I was thinking
of you
about that
either, and so like this is new.
Hi,
I mean, I know you've
seen. This is a part of me too.
Seen all of that for me, but
yeah. I just need to meditate on what does future me look like so that this part doesn't come out. I feel like I haven't felt this angsty since we were in Colorado.
Wow.
And helping Mark's parents like pack up and move. Like
yeah,
the emotions that I've been feeling this week are like that kind of energy. And it's like I can't even put a name to like anything that I've actually had to do this week, and it's not even as chaotic or dramatic as that experience was, but the energy of the overwhelm and anxiety that I've been feeling this week is similar to that time in my life when I was like, I'm just gonna fucking break and crawl into a hole forever.
I keep hearing phantom baby cries. That's why I keep pulling
mom
it hasn't happened, but for like an hour and a half I keep pulling it off.
That's just being a good mom.
Well, yeah,
it's fine. I'll be fine.
You're fine.
I'm totally fine.
Totally fine. You're supposed to feel all the feelings, and you're tapped in, tuned in, you're sensy to all the things.
Yeah.
I don't
sensitive.
Sometimes.
How are you?
Fine. I don't know. Ever since I was like pregnant, anytime I read astrology stuff, I'm like, that's not for me.
No.
Like I just have these other hormones pumping that like make nothing affect me, basically.
It's kind of magic.
I do think that I'm transforming in a lot of ways, but I'm
not
just
as
like
aggressive.
Like, I mean, I literally just became a mom. That's like the biggest transformation, and like navigating that. But and I'm like taking on a lot, but I feel like really balanced in it, and
you've been so graceful.
Just feeling great, really.
That's
I like gave myself all these other jobs at work, and for a minute I was like, should I have done that? But I think it's going good. I call myself salon manager. I didn't tell the owner that, but it's fine.
I mean, you are doing a lot of managerial things, so maybe that'll become an actual official title someday.
Yeah, so everything's going good. Today's episode is part 2 with Carly Whorton, and surprise, there's gonna be a part 3 because we just cannot get enough.
My God, yeah.
She's interesting. She's funny. She is just like a well of fucking knowledge,
and she's so
and
real
information.
and kind.
Yeah, she's so good. And the way she breaks things down is so good. Honestly, we'll probably even have her back again sometime.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this. So
So
this
much.
is going to be part 2. We're diving more into her offerings, and we'll talk about the eclipse and what that means, and then make sure to stick around for part 3 because we get back
Yeah, we're
into
just
all
gonna
of the signs
we
and
just
what
have
they
to
mean.
cut it like in the half of this conversation, because so it'll kind of have somewhere an abrupt end. We don't know where, and that's just an ellipses for what's to come next week. Because yeah, I think we talked for 2.5 hours, and there's just no way we can make you sit down for the whole week listening to that.
Totally. And we want you to come back for more.
And we want more.
So, we'll just let you dive right into it because there's a lot to take in. Enjoy.
Start by taking some deep grounding breaths and connecting our energy today, breathing in through the nose and exhaling. Another deep breath in and release. One last big grounding breath. And release. I'd like to call in our higher selves, the higher selves of anyone listening at this time, as well as our ancestors and spiritual guides and any other beautiful, loving energies that wish to hold us today. Please wrap us in love and protection and allow only the highest vibrational, loving, pure energies to come through today. And allow whatever is meant for the highest good of all to be shared. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
She's back.
She's back. We've got our Carly girl back.
Oh, hello, guys.
So
Hello.
excited.
It's awesome to be back.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So
Thank
it's
you.
the solar eclipse day today.
So
April.
great.
We are recording April 8th. And our last time we recorded was a lunar eclipse, correct?
Yeah, I think it was like right on the day or day before or something, like, and didn't really fully put it all together when we're like, okay, we'll record again and talk more about the magic that you create. And wow, where, like,
We're
I mean,
back on the
I
eclipse.
feel like we're all different people since last time, and it's only been 2 weeks. How are you doing? How are you holding up? How's this eclipse treating you?
That's the beauty of eclipse season, is so much change in such a little time span.
Wow.
And I am definitely not exempt from that. Especially last week, God, it was like starting to look like a shit show. And I just dove into it face first, like knowing full well that it's going to have its way no matter what. So I can drag this out, or we can just lean in and see what it has for us.
Surrender.
And I spent, exactly. I spent like a whole day last weekend just like crying and expressing and making noises. And it was very loud in my house that day. But there was so much that wanted to be witnessed, a lot of anger that needed to come out about a lot of different things. And that stuff can't live in there, or best that it doesn't.
Totally. Yeah. So relatable. And I wonder too, like, do you think that like rage vibe is because we're eclipsing in Aries, or is there like more shit going on? Because I also was like screaming and yelling and full of fire, which isn't like my natural state. I feel honestly fucking crazy. Like even still today, a little fucking crazy. And I was driving over here today for recording, and I was like, even fucking spiritual healers are affected by this bullshit. Like, I'm still fucking human, and I'm allowed to also break down. I'm like crying for no reason. every 2 seconds.
Yeah. Maybe even more affected, because I think the more
Yeah,
tapped in and
touch.
allowing you are, like if you'll allow the energy to flow, the energy is freaking crazy right now.
Totally.
And so like, are we available for that or not? And yeah, I mean, I'm available for the
Yes.
spontaneous, random breakdown crying for no reason.
Yeah.
I'm available for that. And so there's been a lot of that, but there's a lot of that kind of all the time in my world.
I
of
feel
like just being
normal.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm cozy here. I'm
I'm
a Scorpio.
fine.
I
I'm
love when
good.
shit's
No.
on fire.
Maybe it's like pregnancy hormones. I'm chilling.
I know. It's like Taylor and I always have this really great balance ever since we've been doing the podcast. Obviously we hang out every single week at least because of that, and we've always noticed like when one of us is fucking in the mud, the other one's like, it's okay, I got us, I'll carry us.
I'm
And it's
good.
always this like yin yang balance between the two of us, and I'm so fucking grateful for it, because I mean, no one likes feeling messy, and I definitely don't like feeling messy, and I've been such a mess all week, and she's just like, it's cool, I'm chilling, I'll help us out,
What
I'm
do you
doing
need me
shit.
to do?
I'm like, I don't know, just fucking love me. Don't take anything personal.
Love my mess. That's a good one. That's a really good
like,
one. Yeah.
so it's great.
I got
I'm
you.
grateful for you.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh,
I'll let you know when I
that's
need
perfect.
Yeah, and then when she's a wreck, then I'm like, cool, I got us. It's
Yeah.
fine. You go be in the mud. It's fine.
Well, and I think too, like it depends on where Aries and Libra are, like in your natal chart.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that and like how loaded you are on that axis, how much action you have going on in those houses in your chart,
Mhm.
that could make this eclipse season affect some a lot more drastically than others.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You know,
how
so,
can you explain
yeah.
how it is affecting people with Libra or Aries in their chart more so?
Well, real quick, I think before we dive into that, like because it is waking up the witch, people are like, what are they fucking talking about? What is an eclipse? How often does it happen?
Great.
And then like flow into like, because this is going to be put out later and everyone's going to be like, okay, where was I on April 8th and how did I feel? And this is going to be more of a reflective piece about this current eclipse. But
Yeah.
Nice.
So what is an eclipse?
No, we can. Yes. We'll
How
start
often
there.
does it
So,
happen and what does it usually represent?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have eclipse season a couple times a year, and there's always two at a time. So we'll have a full moon lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse. And eclipses are always on new moon or full moon. The lunar eclipse is always with a full moon. The solar eclipse is always on a new moon. And normally, and this is going to take some visuals, so I'm going to try to explain it while I'm making these hand gestures. But normally, when we have the new moon, for example, like what we're having today, that just means the sun and the moon are at the same point in the sky. So, like right now, or at the time of the eclipse, they were both at 19 degrees of Aries. And that is always true on a new moon. Like they're always exactly lined up. And it's when they cross paths once a month, that's the new moon. The thing that's unique about an eclipse is that like the planets, they have an ability to like not rotate on the same exact ecliptic is what it's called. And so that would be like the exact path where either it's like flat or it's tilted. They can get off to where they're not really at the same point, if like one's above, one's below. For example, like there's partial solar eclipse, and that means like they're not quite lined up exactly. This one is a total solar eclipse though, and that means the moon moved exactly in front of the sun. And so it got dark wherever you were. Like if you were on the path of the eclipse, like it was going to, the moon was eclipsing the sun. So the moon gets in the way of the sun's light. Something is hidden. It goes dark for a while. The lunar eclipse, it's the earth moving
that
in front
happening right
of
now?
the moon. It happened about an hour ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the time of recording this, it was like 1:30 Central Time on April 8th. So, and it gets dark like on the path of the eclipse.
Mhm.
And so like there are charts that show like here's where it went over the
Mhm.
US and
Right.
yeah, so not
My-
everybody got like a lot of darkness.
My childhood best friend is getting married right now and in the path of like totality. It's really
Oh,
beautiful.
wow.
Yeah.
I heard I've listened to the astrology podcast and they do a forecast for each month. And on there, they were saying there's like hundreds of couples
Yeah.
doing that,
Oh, I
like
bet.
getting married on the eclipse. And yeah, it's an interesting
On a
choice.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just based on what the eclipse represents, especially in Aries. So yeah, that's what an eclipse is. It's when they are exactly not just at the same degree point, but the same ecliptic. So they're really, really in each other's way. And having the closest meeting they'll have all year is when they have their eclipse meetup. And we have that like in the spring and the fall, typically. So we'll have another eclipse season later this year, and that one will be a Pisces full moon lunar eclipse and a Libra new moon solar eclipse. So it's always really close to where the north and south node of the moon are. So like if you're familiar with astrology in your natal chart, the eclipses are always within 17 degrees of where the north or south node is. That's how we know which new moon and which full moon are the eclipse.
That makes sense.
I guess. I don't understand the degrees.
The degrees, so like if you the zodiac wheel of like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, all the way around to Pisces, the wheel is 360 degrees and each of the 12 zodiac signs is 30 degrees.
Okay.
So like 19 degrees of Aries is about 2/3 of the way through the zodiac sign of Aries. And that's where we are in Aries season. We're 2/3 of the way. We've got like another 10 days of Aries season before it'll flip over into the sun in Taurus and we'll be in Taurus season.
See, I had no idea.
Sweet.
Amazing.
There you go. I'm glad you asked. Yeah. Yeah, definitely ask questions like that as we go because I love explaining the mechanics so that it is accessible. You take one look at a natal chart and sometimes it can be like, okay, never mind. And you just close back out.
That's how I feel.
It can be a lot to process. Yeah, it's a lot to
there's so
digest.
much. So during eclipse season, like spiritually, energetically, what could people typically experience, regardless of where their signs are, what the eclipse is under? Like, what is just kind of like rule of thumb for people to kind of think about when we're in eclipse season?
Yeah, so eclipses, they say, bring fated changes. Fated turning points. And so anytime we get into this idea of fate, I feel like it's really a lot for each individual to contemplate and to decide what your unique relationship is with that concept. But they say lunar eclipses, like the full moon lunar eclipse, is like an ending. So fated endings. And the solar eclipse, the new moon, is fated new beginnings. And typically, your new beginning is growing out of whatever ending you had. So, like, yeah, for example, mine deciding that I don't want this anymore, there's freedom that's beginning, there's new options that are beginning, possibilities that are beginning because of closing the book on something that I decided like that's over now.
Well, good for you. Whatever that is.
It was time.
Yeah.
It was time. And fated timing, you know, like, so I think that's the gist of like the difference between the full moon lunar eclipse and the new moon solar eclipse is like endings and beginnings. But both of them, eclipse season in general, it's like turning points that are right on time. Like I have another friend who's selling her house right now and like they bought a new house. So like big life changes that it's not going to play out for just 6 months. Like they normally would say, like your new moon is going to culminate at the full moon later in the year, like 6 months later. Like the Aries new moon in Aries season is culminating with the Aries full moon in Libra season. 6 months later, these are much larger life chapters that are getting started, possibly even decades or like the whole rest of your life, something beginning that's not gonna end this lifetime. Like those seeds planted during this time are super powerful. And like you were saying earlier, I think as far as what to expect, like crazy emotions are really up and down, drastic reactions to things. Like that's not really far off course. Like that's pretty typical.
Yeah. Just like
Yeah.
seriously in the swamp of everything. Like literally
The swamp. Yeah.
yeah. The
That's a
first
great word
eclipse
for it.
of this portal, my toilet had a slow leak that we didn't realize. Like an upstairs toilet
Oh.
had the slow leak, and I woke up one morning and my ceiling in my kitchen was like having this drip from the ceiling, and I was like, what the fuck is
Oh, that's
happening?
not good.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
like, caught it in a pot, and then went upstairs and realized the toilet's dripping, and I was like, oh, okay, this is fucking great. And so we had
Oh,
to like
God.
completely replace our toilet. Like this toilet's super old. My house is really old, and had to completely replace the toilet and do all of these valves. And so we were like, okay, I think it's okay. I think it's fine. Like we just have to repair this crack in the ceiling, and we did the toilet. It's all good. And then yesterday, so that was maybe a week or two ago, I had to like not go into work. Like it was just a big deal. And, some of my spiritual friends were like, okay, it's a time to go inward, and what emotions are you not like confronting, just like how can we make meaning of this watery mess in your home?
Always.
And like
Yes.
that's how I operate. I love making meaning of things. And like
Sure.
truly, I feel like I've neglected my home for so long because I've just been so busy with work and life and stuff that it's like I haven't even dusted in months. And so I'm like, okay, I really like need to be home and like tend to my home because it's literally crying that I'm not paying attention to it.
It's crying.
It's
I love
crying.
that.
And then yesterday I
Oh.
noticed like, because that's my bathroom, that's like where I do all my stuff. Like it fucking smells like mold in here. Uh-oh. Like maybe there's a bigger mess. And it just like stuff like that feels eclipsey to me too. It's like,
Yes.
when it rains it pours and like crazy messes happen. And for me it really is like tend to yourself, tend to your home. Like you have poured out all of your cup. You have nothing left to give. Shut everything out, turn everything off, and just focus like on yourself and focus on what's not working anymore right now because you are overflowing and so is your house.
Totally. Totally. And I think again it depends like on where Libra and Aries are in your chart, but
Yeah.
I think like in general that like culmination point,
Mm-hmm.
that things reaching a critical mass where it has to change.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
it's now
You have to
not
pay
an
attention.
option.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's no band-aid that's going to fix this at
No.
this point. Like we need an overhaul. So like that to me
Yep.
is what eclipses bring, is like something to a head that probably
Totally.
needed to be dealt with a while
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
and we didn't, and whatever, and
Yeah.
now it's time. And yeah, we got a new toilet, sounds like, or something growing out of
It's
this
great.
ending.
A beautiful new toilet.
Perfect.
And maybe new flooring. We'll find out tomorrow.
Right. And that like
yeah.
that playing out more than just on the day. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love this conversation as far as like you can even look back. Maybe it's a little easier to understand what the eclipse did for you, because that lunar eclipse was on Monday, March 25th, and that was in Libra at like 5 degrees, I think. And then the solar eclipse today in Aries is at 19 degrees Aries, and that's April 8th, Monday, April 8th. So yeah, looking at what endings transpired in those 2 weeks and what beginnings started as a result of those endings, and what emotions were brought to the surface as a result of what all happened. You know, because like that's a stressful thing to have something like that happen in your house or in a relationship or in a work situation, or you know, there's a lot that can be triggered just by being put under stress.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like so many people I know that are like having big endings and stuff right now and big beginnings. It's always so fascinating to see, like, it sucks that we have to go through some of this, but it is fated, and I really do believe that it like sets us up for greater beginnings, truly. So,
Yes.
as painful
Yes.
as it is to see all these people that I care about like having some major transformations, it's like I can't wait to meet us in a couple of months too.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way you say that, especially where today, the solar eclipse that's happening is happening in exact conjunction, which means it's like right next to Chiron.
Yes, let's talk about
Chiron,
this.
the wounded healer.
Yes.
Oh my God. It's like you couldn't, the rare doesn't even describe it. Like it is so once in a blue moon, once in 13 blue moons to
Wow,
see
yeah.
this new moon solar eclipse happen at 19 degrees 24 minutes, which is like the exact address of where the new moon happened, the solar eclipse happened, and that is exactly where Chiron is.
Wow.
So like to see them all three sitting there and have the solar eclipse happen on Chiron, the wounded healer, that is not an accident. So I think like anything that is coming up right now is for the good of the all. The wounded healer is
let's
all
talk
about like
that. Yeah, what is Chiron? What does that mean for us, like as a collective? Why do we want to care about Chiron?
Also, do you think P. Diddy's house being raided is like a part of all of it?
I don't I love that story. I mean, probably. I mean, it's eclipse season. Anything can happen. Talk about an ending.
Yeah.
Talk about like something coming to a head. Something like probably been in the works for quite a while,
Oh my
and
gosh.
Yeah,
it like all busts through right now. Like, sure.
Yeah, I don't
Why
know. I
not?
think a lot of like celebrities are probably going down with the ship as far as that goes, and that feels like I don't know, a big collective shift as well. And we like to talk a little pop culture over here, so
Sure. So Chiron is part asteroid, part comet, I think. It's like made up of two different things, and it's also the centaur, like in the mythology. It's like half horse, half man. And he's the wounded healer because he's eternal, and he got injured with this poisonous arrow, and the arrow should have killed him, but he's eternal. So like it's about this wound that just won't heal. And we all have a Chiron in our chart. We all, like, whatever sign it's in, whatever planets it's nearby, whatever aspects it's making. And we all have this wound inside of us that is painful and seems like no matter how many times we spiral around it and we heal it again, it just never really goes away. It always festers back up. And you might be thinking, like, why do we have to deal with that? Like, why is that a thing? And the thing about it is that Chiron became a very gifted healer. He made medicine for his own wound that was able to help him find some relief. And because he knew it worked, because it helped him find relief, he was then also able to give it to others and help them find relief in their wounds. And so that would be like the highest expression of your Chiron wound, is that you figure out how to make medicine and you get to receive that medicine. You self-soothe in your own pain, but you also teach other people how to soothe in similar wounds. Like you're able to give your medicine away.
that.
So Chiron, the wounded healer, is right there with this solar eclipse. And so the endings and new beginnings, like the pain of those endings, is very much informing the medicine that you're trying to make, the medicine that you want to be able to give away to yourself and to the collective. So I think, especially with the fact that that new beginning, that solar eclipse point is sitting on Chiron, the chances of this being somewhat of a painful experience makes a lot of sense to me, because that's the the beginning, the impetus for creating the medicine is for you to be in pain.
Yeah.
And to make something of that, to like alchemize the pain into medicine. So, yeah.
So amazing. So collectively, like, is there anything that you see that's been coming up around that, or like, what is our collective wound, or how does that relate to the time that, because Chiron's always moving and shifting, there's, you know, Chiron's always existing, but like right now with the eclipse, is there anything in particular that you resonate with that could be affecting us collectively?
So I think, the fact that Chiron spends about 8 years in Aries, and it has one of those orbits where it doesn't spend the same amount of time in every single sign. So it spends 8 years in Chiron, or sorry, 8 years in Aries and Pisces, and only about a year in Virgo and Libra. And then the signs in between that are like less than somewhere in the middle of that. So
Interesting.
8 years in Aries.
That's a long time.
That means like as a collective, we have a lot of souls that were born while Chiron was in Aries. So like if you're about 50, that means you're going through your Chiron return. Lots of people have that. And with the North Node and South Node in that sign, like the North Node in Aries, the South Node in Libra, what's happening through Chiron and Aries, through this set of eclipses, is us being shown where have we been giving our power to other people? Where have we been giving our power into relationships and trusting those relationships to see us through to the other side? And then the relationship or that support structure, whatever it is, could be a business partnership, doesn't have to be necessarily a romantic thing, but investing power into like, I'm part of this group and that's going to keep me safe. And then the group blows up or the relationship falls apart, or all of a sudden your person is like not there to support you. And now you're in crisis. And what resources do you have inside of yourself to take care of yourself? It's like a portal and a passage of like learning to be a lot more independent. And often we gain our independence and we see the value of our independence by being let down by other people.
Wow. And so it's moved into Aries. Does that mean 8 years starts right now? Or does it have like retrograded periods too?
Chiron does go retrograde for like 5 months a year. And it has actually been in Aries for 6 years.
Okay.
So Chiron went into Aries in 2018, and I think it's 2026 when Chiron's going to go back into Taurus. So we're on the home stretch. We have a couple more years of Chiron and Aries. And we have, at this point, I think about 9 months left of the North Node being in Aries, the South Node being in Libra, and this dynamic of empowering ourselves, taking power out of the relationships where we've put it and putting it back inside of ourselves. We have about 9 more months of like really intense Aries, building up our independence, believing in ourselves, empowering ourselves. Yeah. Believing that we're worth that.
And I've become super fascinated personally with the nodes since they shifted back in July, because I am a Libra sun and my husband's an Aries sun. And also our nodes, we both have North Node and South Node in Taurus and Scorpio. And so the last nodal shift like was a nodal return for us. And so it's become like my new favorite piece of astrology that I personally have been learning and getting kind of nerdy out on. Also why I feel like we're so affected right now by the eclipse this month. But if just for the listeners, like how could you explain briefly like what the nodes are and why we want to, consider them when we're looking at a birth chart?
So the nodes get, like, if you want to talk about it like in like astronomical terms, like physically what's going on out in space, that's where we get really complicated. But basically it's like where the sun is crossing the moon's ecliptic. So like I
Mhm.
was saying before, where like the moon and sun come together once a month, but like on an eclipse, it's like they are not only at the same degree lined up vertically, they're also at the same ecliptic lined up horizontally. And so
Wow.
that's the nodes astronomically. I don't get super turned on by the
Yeah.
astronomy of it. I personally like thinking about it from an evolutionary astrology standpoint, where the nodes of the moon, which is what they are, the north and south node, are the lunar nodes. They represent our past karma, which is the south node. So the karma that we brought into this life with us from our past lifetimes. And the north node represents our destiny or our fate. So like what we are leaning into, our fated path, the skills that we came here to develop. Another way that I will describe it is that basically you have a PhD in whatever your south node is in, and you've barely started kindergarten on the sign where your north node is.
Okay, I like
So
that.
it's about like you've already studied, you're already an expert on the south node end. And as a soul, we always are learning and growing and evolving and seeking greater balance within ourselves. And so the sign where the north node is pointed is the development that's going to bring us more into balance and harmony as a soul. It's going to round us back out so that we're not so lopsided, focusing on one energy over the other. So like, did you say you're both Taurus north nodes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like in that example, like you guys are experts at the Scorpio stuff and need to practice, need to develop more on the Taurus end of things, need to
So
add that
it's
skill set to
whatever the opposite
your
is.
toolbox.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're
They are always 180
Yeah.
degrees apart. So they're an axis or always in opposition with each other. Yes.
Okay, so mine is Capricorn. What is the opposition of Capricorn?
Cancer.
Okay.
in which
Cancer.
your north node's Capricorn.
My north node is Capricorn.
That makes so much sense for you.
Okay.
I love that.
Okay.
she's like our business lady, you know, and she's like holding on to
that's
that,
good.
honoring that. She's big business lady and so good at it. And
That's perfect.
yeah, that makes so much sense knowing that about you.
Yeah. That's good to like be proactively leaning into that, because typically
Totally.
Cancer South Node is like a lot more like of the home, like of the domestic arts, like being at home, making the food, like managing the house, like those kinds of things. And so for Capricorn North Node, it's about getting out in the world and building something on your
Doing
own
it.
terms and like
Yeah, you're
making your
killing
way
that.
in the world. Absolutely. So yeah, like that's amazing to be proactively leaning into that.
So if someone was interested in knowing their chart, like how do you recommend they find that?
So if somebody has never started before, I really like the site Cafe Astrology, and you just
Same.
type in your
That's what I
birthday,
just looked
the
mine up.
location, the time if you know it. And the reason I like that one is because it gives you the chart, same as every other site, but it also will give you like a 20-page report.
Yeah.
Where it's going to give you
Cool.
like paragraph versions of trying to get you started understanding like what it is that you see in your chart. Where a lot of sites, like they'll give you the chart and that's the end.
Yeah, and then you're just like, what are all these symbols and numbers and degrees? That's so confused.
I do have a question about that site. So
Yeah.
I've looked up mine. I usually use that site, but at the bottom it has like your masculine, feminine, cardinal, fixed, mutable. Is that just how many signs you have in those categories?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure masculine and feminine, like they consider air and fire signs to be masculine, and feminine would be water and earth. And then cardinal, fixed, and mutable are the modalities that describe like cardinal signs begin each season. So like Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn begin each of the 4 seasons. Fixed signs are always in the middle of the season. So you have Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And then mutable are the ones that are like hybrid. It's like the end of one season and the preparing for the beginning of a new season. So the mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and
Okay.
Pisces.
Okay.
So cool.
So yeah,
Interesting.
those little summaries can be really interesting to see, like, you know, where do you fall? Do you have a lot of cardinal energy? Do you have a lot of fixed energy? A lot of mutable energy? Like, they each carry their own flavor. And so I like to kind of zoom out to that level and get that macro view. Like mine, I mean, it's like the more stuff I add to the chart, like the more asteroids and stuff that I have it show me, it's like I just get more and more and more mutable. Like that column just like
Wow.
fills up over and over and over again. Like that's what I do. I'm really good at change.
So,
Not
what
so
does
great
it
at sitting
mean?
still.
Yeah, no kidding.
What does a cardinal sign mean? What does a fixed sign mean? And what does it mean if you have more mutable signs?
So cardinal signs get things going. They begin, right? They begin the seasons. They put something where there was nothing. They tend to be really courageous. They want to start things. Like, you think about Aries, like being a pioneer or a soldier, like being on the front lines, not knowing what's up ahead, but like gonna charge ahead anyway. Cancer tends to like want to start families, want to, Libra starts relationships, Capricorn starts businesses or legacies. Fixed signs, like in the middle of the seasons, that's where, like, okay, so great, you started the thing, but now how are you going to keep it going? You know, like if you plant the seed in the ground, that doesn't guarantee you a harvest. You need to come back and you need to take care of it over and 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 over. And
Wow.
so they tend to be really consistent and like make sure that you're going to get a harvest because they're going to show up as many times as needed to get you there. Mutable signs are good at being adaptable, go with the flow, responding to what is. So you think about like Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, like nothing's set in stone. Like, you want to switch gears at the drop of the hat? Great. That's fine. I'm part this, I'm part that. I can be whatever you need me to be. Very chameleon type energy. So very versatile. So typically we all have some of all of that. We all have the place in ourselves where we're good at beginnings, where we're good at being consistent and stable, and we're good at being adaptable. But usually you can find like which of those three is more loaded up in your chart.
So cool.
Okay,
This is
and then
great.
we've
What other
talked about
questions do you
this. I'm just gonna keep going. So we've talked about this before,
Yeah, I
but
love
all
it.
of the signs fall under fire, earth, air, and water. First of all, I have no fire in my entire chart. It says
Oh,
0.
interesting.
But and 5 water, so we're kind of a little crazy. But
Okay.
4 earth, 1 air. So
Okay.
can you walk us
Very
through
feminine.
9 feminine, 1 masculine?
Yeah. Yeah.
It says. But so we've talked about this a bunch on the podcast, but just to refresh, like, what are the signs that are in each one of those categories, and what do those categories typically represent?
Yeah, so masculine being fire and air. The fire signs are Aries, Leo, Sag. The air signs are Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And those masculine signs are very detached from the emotions of other people. And this is like, I'm like having caveats even as I say that because of, it's a sliding scale.
Totally.
But compared to the feminine signs, they are detached. They are especially the fire signs are the ones where like our own soul has every bit of guidance that we need, like the spark of life force that drove us onto this plane, the mission that we came with. We're here to act that out. And typically, like especially heavy fire would indicate like you're going for it. You're not stopping to ask for permission. You don't need the consensus of anybody else to show you that like, oh yeah, great, you're on the right track. You give yourself the permission. And you think about that with like the masculine energy, the masculine archetype, like you just do what you want to do. Okay. And like the consequences are whatever they are. Like my old business partner used to say, like, it's a lot easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Like that's the gist of the masculine energies, the air and fire signs. Is like you just kind of go where you want to go and like deal with whatever you need to deal with afterwards. The feminine archetypes are kind of the opposite of that. the water and earth signs, the earth signs would be Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, and the water signs would be Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. And they are much more connected, especially to the people they care about, but also to their work, to their business, to their, like, what are they trying to support? Like, you think about the feminine energy, like giving birth to an infant or even planting a garden. Like, you can't just walk away from that. Like, oh, well, I got a new impulse, so I'm going to go over here and do this thing. Like, no, you need to stop and think about like everything that's counting on you, everything that's depending on you. So I would say that's like the main difference of, are you focused on self or are you focused on what's relying on you outside of self? And again, like, if you look in your chart to see like, do you have more masculine energy or more feminine energy? Typically we all have some of all of it. And it doesn't even necessarily go by biological gender. That's not necessarily it. Like, you could definitely have a woman who has more masculine energy, and this is what that would mean, is like, she's got a lot of fire and air energy. She's not concerned with other people giving her permission. She's not concerned with the promises she made in the past necessarily being her top priority of like keeping that. It's like, what's next? What's my next impulse? What's my next creative urge? So I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
I have a question. What is, like, this may be a two-parter or it could be the same answer too, but like, what's your personal favorite part of the chart that gets you like really excited when you're looking at someone's chart for the first time? Or like, if you're making a new friend and you're curious and want to kind of look at their chart, what is like the one thing or the two things that you're like, I really want to see this in them? What do you go to?
So I would say, like, first, I want to see what their nodes are. I love the north and south node, like the concept of evolution, the concept of like who we came here as and who we intended to grow into. I think like the south node can tell us a lot about the patterns and challenges that the person typically faces. And then I also want to know their rising sign. I love the quote that says, like, if you want to feel more like yourself, live like your rising sign. So that for me is my favorite, because the first time I saw my rising sign, and probably several months after seeing my rising sign, I was like, fuck that. That's not me. That's so boring. No, gross. Ew, I don't want that. And like, no offense, but it's the Taurus rising. And so
I love
like,
Taurus energy.
I love it too.
Me too.
It's precious. And so I want to see like, what is their rising sign, and do they present like that?
Can I reverse?
Like, is that the
first?
vibe I get from them?
So
What's
like,
that?
I just want to reverse for a sec as a refresher for all of the listeners. So your sun sign is typically what you'll read in like Cosmo. That's what everybody identifies themselves as. And what does that typically mean? So it's like how you present yourself.
The sun is like the core of your personality.
Okay.
It's like imagine all the planets on your natal chart are having a meeting. They're like all sitting around this big conference table. Your sun is holding the gavel.
Okay.
Your sun is like leading the meeting. So if there's a tie, the sun is the tiebreaker. It's the core of your personality, who you are.
Interesting.
And then the moon and the rising. What are those two?
The moon is our soul or our emotions. Okay. So it's like our feeling sense, our intuition. So I mean, like, definitely informing what we do and how we do it, but not necessarily in charge for most people. And then the rising sign is the sign that was on the eastern horizon at the moment of your birth. It's the one that was rising up into the sky at the moment of your birth. And so that's like the way you lead, the way you make a first impression, the way you start new things. Like, if you just met someone in a casual setting, chances are the energy that you would feel from them, if you were like adept at sensing the 12 zodiac signs, you would feel their rising sign more than their sun sign, more than their moon, more than anything else about them. You're going to get their rising sign.
And what are
It's
your
like that
big
first
three?
impression
Yeah.
face. So I have a Gemini sun, a Leo moon, and a Taurus rising.
Amazing.
I'm just realizing my
It's a fun
moon, so
combo.
you said like it's your soul, your intuition, is the same as my south node, which is like your karma, right?
Ooh.
Whatever you come into. So that feels
So you have a
very
Cancer
like,
moon?
yeah. I'm all water, so
Okay.
I'm Scorpio, Sun, Cancer, Moon, Pisces, rising.
Holy moly.
That's
love
what
that.
everyone always
You-
says. Oh.
You don't get that very often. It's very rare to have like your big three all in one element. Like that's a very
Mhm.
deliberate move on behalf of a soul to be like, no, this time. And especially with your North Node in Capricorn, that's so interesting.
I just want to feel it all.
Yeah. And what are yours? What are yours, Amber? Remind me.
Libra sun, Sagittarius moon, Virgo rising.
Yep.
Oh.
Oh.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
like
interesting
some
because that
good
means you guys
balance.
have, you have opposite rising signs. Like Pisces and Virgo
Oh.
are sister signs. So
Oh.
like Virgo rising, Pisces rising would be like, yeah.
I've
opposite
literally
rising.
never thought about that with us. That's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Especially where you're partners, it's very interesting.
Yeah. How would that, how does like, what's interesting about it? Let's tell the listeners how does that work for us in just your little bits with us?
Yeah, that means that like your rising signs land in each other's seventh houses, and the seventh house is all about partnership.
Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah, like just reflecting partnership styles back to each other.
Wild.
Is interesting.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that being very
and
balanced.
the balance, like what you were describing at the beginning of like either I'm up and she's down or she's down and I'm up, and like your charts are like flipped from each other.
That's
cute.
kind of cool.
It works. Yeah. That happens a lot of times. Like what you were saying, Amber, about like you're a Libra sun and your husband's an Aries sun. Like those are sister signs, like having that inverse of each other. Yeah.
Yeah, it works. We're also
else?
very yin yang.
What is a Lilith? Well, like, what does that mean?
Lilith,
if you
I
look
love
at
her.
A chart?
Lilith, like the mythology is that's Adam's first wife, like Adam and Eve. Okay, like before Eve, there was Lilith, and Lilith was wild, and basically she got kicked out of the Garden of Eden because she just would not conform.
Love
and
it.
so it's like where we get rejected for our wildness and where we can come into even more of our power by embracing what comes naturally to us.
Oh my God, I love that. That's going to be my new favorite.
Yeah.
Mine
It's a good one.
Capricorn.
It's a really good one.
Oh, Capricorn.
With your North Node. Oh,
magical.
Interesting.
So
what would that mean?
Gosh, this is fun.
Yeah, this is
what
very
would what mean?
fun. Like if someone's Lilith was in Capricorn, like what does that even mean?
Like Capricorn is our legacy. Like what are the remains of your life? Like when you're no longer here, what's going to be left to show for it? And so like what do you build during your lifetime that's going to be left behind? And Lilith there almost makes me think like that what you build, it's not necessarily readily accepted. Like it might be ahead of its time. It might upset the apple cart. It might push against the status quo. And we're literally sitting on a podcast right now called Waking Up the Witch. Like, I don't know. It's just like you're breaking from convention. Like Capricorn is a very traditional sign. And so Lilith being there, it's like you're starting your own tradition, even if other people don't like it, kind of thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Do you have any other questions right now? Because I love the way you explain everything.
Right?
And I would love to even just go through the chart and like have you, in your way of looking at things, explain each sign so that people can kind of like feel into their signs and like how they can relate to that, because you just explain it in such a like
that'd be fun.
a
This is why I love
way.
Carly.
Yeah.
I do. I love,
and I still cannot believe
onboarding.
that you just learned astrology during like 2020 because you're like, it really
that's where,
is like something that feels like a lifetime that you've been, you know, exploring and learning.
Okay, so that is all for today with Carly. This has been part 2. Make sure to come back next week where we talk about all of the signs and what they mean for part 3.
See you next week. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Drink some water.
Maybe some wine if you need it.
I want some wine.
This episode has been produced and mixed by Caleb Tunstall.
Find us on TikTok and Instagram at Waking Up the Witch.
Please email us your witchy stories, ghost stories, corrections, and advice questions to wakingupthewitch@gmail.com.
Love you.
Love you.